Hi, this is Duong. Today I'm going to show you how to make sweet and sour pork. Now, sweet and sour pork is something I like to eat when I go to a Chinese restaurant. Although sometimes I find like some restaurants when they make the sweet and sour pork, it tends to have a little bit more of a ketchupy taste to it, which I don't like. So I've tried many recipes over the years to try to duplicate the sweet and sour pork. And I find that, overall they're actually not too bad, but they're not great. Now, I finally found one website that I think the recipe is actually very good. It's made by Nagy from recipetineats.com. I've included the website link in the description, so I suggest you check it out. View her description on the recipe, and also you can watch a small little clip of how to make it. Today I'm going to show you obviously the slower down version of it so that you can follow along. And again, so without further ado, let's get started. First step is to make the pork marinade, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So the first ingredient that you will need is the pork. I'm using pork loin, which is a little bit on the lean side. And I also cut this into cubes. Now, pork loin is probably not the best cut to use because if you overcook it, it's going to be dry. All right. But this is the only cut I have right now, so I'm going to be using this. You can use pork shoulder or any other cuts you want. All right, so this is about 400 grams. You will also need baking soda, not baking powder, baking soda. And this is 3/8 of a teaspoon. And the purpose of the baking soda is to tenderize the pork. Now, this is the secret ingredient that a lot of Chinese restaurants use to tenderize the meats. All right. We'll also need 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, half an onion, which I pureed using my food processor. We're going to need soy sauce, and we're going to need 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. And we also need about 1 teaspoon of ginger. Now, I tend to process mine and just immerse it in oil and put it in the fridge. Because I do a lot of stir fries, I don't have to keep prepping for the gingers. All right, so this is a little bit of a shortcut for me to get ginger whenever I need it. Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the baking soda to the pork. Just gonna use my fingers a lot faster, and we're just gonna mix it up. And let's wet it a little bit, so we're going to add some soy sauce. And we want 2 tablespoons. Best to use light soy sauce, but I don't have any light left over, so I'm using just normal soy sauce. Put that aside. So we're just gonna mix this a little bit, just to get the baking soda mixed into the sauce. Okay, I'm gonna add made a little bit of a mess, onion. This aside. Mix this up. Probably should use like a bigger bowl. Might be a little bit easier, people. Add cornstarch. And my ginger. So again, I only want about 1 teaspoon. Make sure I don't have too much oil. It's not too bad. There we go. and you just gotta mix it up. So what you want to do is mix up as well as you can. And obviously use like a bigger bowl than me. We'll make things a little bit easier for you. And what we're gonna do is we'll refrigerate this for a couple of hours. And then we'll move on to the next step. Our next step is to make the sweet and sour sauce. So to do this, I'm going to need to have half a cup of water. To the half cup of water, I'm going to add 4 teaspoons of cornstarch. Now the recipe stipulates to not add the water until the very end, but I will actually change it up a little bit. I prefer adding the cornstarch to the water. And the reason being is that I want the cornstarch to dissolve in the water so that it doesn't get too clumpy. Because I find that if I add the cornstarch a little bit later on in the recipe, I just end up getting like cornstarch chunk, which I definitely don't want. There you go, my handy mixer. So to this, I'm going to add vinegar. So this is a 1/4 cup of vinegar, standard white vinegar. Or if you want, you can also add 1/3 of a cup of cider vinegar instead. But I don't have any, so I'm just going to use white vinegar. Okay, so to this, I'm also going to add some pineapple juice. All right, we're going to be using the pineapples from the can anyway, like when we do the sweet and sour pork at the very end. So why not simply use the pineapple juice as well too? So we're going to use 3 tablespoons of the pineapple juice. So 1, 2, 3. Just mix it up. And then for the soy sauce, we're going to add 1 tablespoon. Better to use light soy sauce, but I don't have any, so I'm just going to use standard soy sauce. Mix this up a little bit. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. Don't know how to say this properly. Worcestershire sauce. I think that's how you say it. If not, well, it's basically this. Okay. 1 teaspoon. Go. I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of oyster sauce. So this is the brand I use, but you can use any brand that you want. It's a little bit on the thick side, but I don't want to do too much. There you go. Just mix it up. So let's mix this a little bit. And to this, I'm also going to add some ketchup. So in this case, I'm going to want 3 tablespoons of ketchup. I can tell you, 3 tablespoons is not a lot compared to some of the recipes that I've tried over the years. Mix this in a little bit. So use it all up. And use my trusty mixer. Now to add the sweetness, you will also want to have lots of sugar. All right, so in this case, this is 1/3 of a cup of just standard white sugar. And yes, it's a lot of sugar, but guess what? It's called sweet and sour pork for a reason, right? So mix this well. Now what you'll find is that the sauce doesn't have like a nice bright red color to it. And the reason being is that they didn't add the food dye, right? Because a lot of restaurants, to get that intense red color, they just simply add the red food dye. But the red food dye is not necessary for the taste, all right? But if you want to add the food dye, go ahead, add the red food dye until you get to the color that you want, all right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this aside in the fridge so that when I'm ready for the stir fry, then it's just easy to just simply remix this and then just pour it to the stir fry. All right, so what we're gonna do now is to get our pork ready to be deep fried. So we're gonna have a nice little coating. So I'm not planning to deep fry the whole entire batch. So I'm just gonna portion mine off a little bit, just because I do want to be able to cook this again at a later time. So I think this should be enough for me for now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some cornstarch. And the purpose of this is not only to coat the pork, but it's also to sort of make it act as sort of like a glue, so that we're gonna do the double breading. All right, so I'm just gonna do this. Add a little bit more. Now this is about 2 tablespoons. I'm not sure I'm gonna use all of it. I'm just gonna basically eye this until I see that it sort of look like a paste covering the pork. Add just a little bit more, I think. And again, it doesn't really have to be perfect, to be honest, because any coating is better than no coating, right? So I think this is not too bad. So let's say good enough. All right. So I'm gonna let this rest for basically about 5 minutes, and then afterwards I'm gonna basically dip this into the corn flour. All right, so this is cornstarch. Now you can actually dip this into another coating of corn starch if you want. All right, but I think for now I'm going to try to do this with cornstarch and see how that goes. All right, so the texture is going to be slightly different because I think this is going to be slightly grittier compared to this. So I'm hoping that this will make this a little bit crispier. All right, but I think we'll find out soon enough. So this is the brand that I use for that. All right. And then in preparation for the stir fry after the pork is deep fried, I'm gonna have my green peppers all cut up into this size. So this is 1 whole green pepper, but obviously because I'm doing small batch like this, I'm not gonna be using all my green peppers. I also have my pineapples that I cut into small pieces. And you buy from the can, you can also buy ones that's already pre-cut for you. And this is half an onion. And again, because I'm doing only a small portion of it, I'm only going to be using a little bit of the onions when I just do the when I do the stir fry. And I have my trusty jar of ginger. And again, I'm only planning to use a little bit of ginger, so I'll probably say about 1 teaspoon of ginger for my stir fry. All right, so what we'll do is we'll wait 5 minutes for this to soak in a little bit more, and then we're gonna double coat it with the corn flour. All right, so be back in 5 minutes. All right, so it's been about 5 minutes now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dip the pork and just basically coat the pork into the corn flour mixture, and just try to remove as much of the excess flour as you can. Just set it aside, and I'm basically just going to repeat the process with the other one. So I'm just going to dump it all in at once just to speed things up. All right, so when it's done, it should look something like this. And again, I'm only gonna make a small batch like this because that's enough for myself. But obviously, you can cook the whole entire batch if you want. So right now, my pork is all coated up. I have my oil being heated up in the pan, and all you have to do is have enough just to be able to deep fry the pork. I have my strainer all set up so that once the pork is done, I can transfer it to the strainer. And I have my pan ready so that once I'm ready to do the stir fry, I can get that done as well too. So let's begin by transferring the pork and frying it up. Let's do one at a time. So let's wait maybe 5 seconds. And basically what you want to do is fry it so that it's nice and golden yellow. And that means it'll be done, and then you can transfer it to your strainer. Okay, so I'm done frying the pork. I let it rest for about 3 or 4 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to refry it the second time around. And by the way, like when I fried the first time, what I did was I did lower the heat a little bit just to make sure that I don't burn the coating, because I think I left it a little bit too high. So definitely want to reduce the heat for the first fry. And then second fry, you can actually make it a little bit hotter so that you can refry for just another minute or so. And that'll just crisp up the coating just a little bit more. Just put it all back. And this is the trick to getting the pork nice and crispy. You do like a double fry. And this is something that you also do for French fries and other deep fried stuff as well too. I think most people already know this. And again, it doesn't take too long. So what I'm also going to do right now is to turn up the heat to maximum so I can get my stir fry ready as well too. Because again, it doesn't take too long to refry the pork. Just about 1 minute. I like making this, but I'm going to hate the cleaning up afterwards, because that's going to be the annoying thing. And you can also like start to feel it being nice and crispy right now. But I definitely don't want to overdo it. Just to turn off the heat. And should be good. I'm going to transfer it back to the strainer, because I definitely don't want to burn this. It's already pretty dark already. And even if it's a little bit on the dark side, it's fine, because you could be coating it anyway, so it should still be good. Main thing is that you don't, burn it to a crisp. So, just gonna move the oil away so it doesn't continue to heat. And I'm just waiting for my pan to heat up a little bit. So again, I set it to maximum heat. Alright, so my oil is nice and hot. And again, if you want to add garlic, you may. But again, I don't eat garlic, so I definitely will not be adding any. I'm going to add the onions, and I'm just going to add a little bit just because I'm making a small batch. Let's go stir fry this. Double check the pork, and yep, still nice and crispy, good. And again, this is set at high heat. And it's actually not going to take too long to cook. The onions itself doesn't have to be caramelized or anything like that. I'm just heating up just a little bit just to sort of mesh the flavor with the garlic, sorry, with the ginger and the oil. Definitely not garlic. But if you want garlic, go ahead. Now what I'm also going to do is to make sure I have my sauce ready as well too. I'm just gonna mix this up again. So this is the sauce that I pre-made. I definitely want to make sure I stir it up nice and well, because once I pour in the sauce, this is definitely not gonna take too long to cook. All right. Now I'm gonna add my green peppers. Again, I'm not gonna add all of it just because I'm only gonna make small batch. And the idea is not to cook the green peppers too long or anything like that. And I'm going to add my pineapples. I like pineapples, so I'm going to add a little bit more. Now this is where it's going to be very, very quick. Alright, so watch. I'm not going to pour all the sauce because again, I'm just making a small batch. I'm going to stir this up a little bit until I see the sauce is starting to thicken up. That doesn't take very long. So it's the cornstarch that basically does that. So see how it spreads? That means the sauce is ready. So dump in my sweet and sour, my pork, mix it up, and just coat it for about 8 seconds or so. Good job of coating it. Turn off my heat, and it starts to smell very, very good right now. And that should be good. Hopefully you can see that. I'm going to transfer that to my plate. And there you have it, sweet and sour pork with a side of rice. Hopefully you've enjoyed the recipe and give it a shot. It's actually not too difficult to make. And by the way, I always like to try new recipes. So if there's a particular recipe that you'd like me to try, just let me know. All right, until next time.